NASA has not officially revealed the new set of targets for its Super Space Telescope, but Webb is understood to have observed a protostar, or very young star, called CED110IRS4 In direct contrast to its maiden images of deep space, Webb has also been pointing its instruments much closer to home so that it can provide humanity with dazzling views of our own solar system. With new, bonus pictures already dropping today. It has captured images of Jupiter's faint rings, the gas giant's moon Europa, and an asteroid called 6481 Tenzing, which is found in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. These pictures were taken before Webb's science operations officially began on July 12, but have just been released as part of the latest data dump for astronomers to pore over. It has also been reported that Webb has been monitoring asteroid 1998 BC1, which is another asteroid belt space rock. But even more exciting is that the observatory is expected to spend a fair bit of time looking at TRAPPIST-1, the most studied planetary system outside of our own. During its first operating cycle, the James Webb Space Telescope will set its sights on the TRAPPIST-1 system, an incredible collection of 7 rocky exoplanets 41 light-years away from Earth, NASA explained. The telescope will undergo atmospheric reconnaissance in a bid to learn more about the system's atmospheres, habitability, and planetary formations, as well as looking into deep space. Webb has also been pointing its instruments much closer to home so that it can provide humanity with dazzling views of our own solar system. As the first 5 images were being released to the world on Tuesday, Webb was already observing a new part of the universe. The telescope is understood to have observed a protostar, or very young star, called CED110IRS4 It has also been reported that it has been monitoring asteroid 1998 BC1, which sits between Mars and Jupiter, and is expected to spend a fair bit of time looking at the most studied planetary system outside of our own. TRAPPIST-1 is home to the largest batch of Earth-size habitable zone planets ever seen orbiting a host star. It lies about 40 light-years away but is set to be a major focus of Webb during its first full year of operations. NASA has not officially said what its new Super Space Telescope will target next, or when the next science pictures will drop, but they could follow every month or so. In the meantime, hot on the heels of Tuesday's release of the first images from Webb, data from the telescope's commissioning period is now being released on the Space Telescope Science Institute's Mikulski Archive for Space Telescopes. It includes images of Jupiter and pictures and spectra of several asteroids, captured to test the telescope's instruments before science operations began earlier this month. The data demonstrates Webb's ability to track solar system targets and produce images and spectra with unprecedented detail. These images are designed for engineering purposes, so they aren't processed in the same way as our first images this week, officials wrote on the NASA Webb Telescope Twitter account. Like some earlier calibration images, these are processed to emphasize certain features. Brian Holler, a scientist at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore, who helped plan the observations, said, "Combined with the deep field images released the other day, these images of Jupiter demonstrate the full grasp of what Webb can observe, from the faintest, most distant observable galaxies to planets in our own cosmic backyard that you can see with the naked eye from your actual backyard. Fans of Jupiter will recognize some familiar features of our solar system's enormous planet in these images seen through Webb's infrared gaze. A view from the NIRCam instrument's short wavelength filter shows distinct bands that encircle the planet as well as the Great Red Spot, a storm big enough to swallow the Earth." The iconic spot appears white in one of the images because of the way Webb's infrared image was processed. It blew the minds of the scientific community when the first batch of James Webb's spectacular images were revealed to the world this week. But attention has already turned to what the $10 billion (£7.4 billion) telescope could capture next, with potentially habitable exoplanets expected to be near the top of that list.